Something that's been a bit of a bugbear of mine over the years is that this is often referred to as the peasant strike, and I can't really understand why. And I'm keeping my arms high where I can use them. There's no point in this, it's a wasted action. I'm safe here because he knows what's coming now. That's why he's not uncontrolled. An uncontrolled person wouldn't even think to move out the way. If I keep turning, there's the thrust. Yeah, this is the risk. Hi all, Marky and John here with the Exiles. Today we're going to look at the villain strike, the Colpo de Villano, as we see in the Gioco Largo section of Fury's works, the wide and loose plays. We won't spend too long on it, but there's a couple of things we just want to pick up on. So this play is working on our opponent giving us a good strong strike, okay? Now there's a couple of different camps with this, and something that's been a bit of a bugbear of mine over the years is that this is often referred to as the peasant strike, and I can't really understand why. The person striking, doing the initial big cut, and we'll show it in a second, is not a peasant, okay? They are not uncontrolled, okay? There's lots of reasons for this. The main two reasons, though, is that if they were uncontrolled, I wouldn't need to go to such lengths to set this action up, okay? I wouldn't need to, as we'll explore, wait in a certain position, waiting for that big attack. If they were uncontrolled and untrained, and I'm trained, I wouldn't even need to do any of this, okay? It wouldn't have gotten this far. The second thing is that in the description of the play, it goes on to talk about the use of poleaxe and cudgels and whatever. Now, if they were a peasant, they probably wouldn't be knocking around with those kind of weapons, okay? So for me, and in my world, I tend to stay away from the idea that the person in front of me is untrained, is a peasant. They're a villain, okay? Which means that they want to basically cause you damage, okay? They may be overzealous, they may be seizing a moment and just swinging in really hard. There could be lots of different factors, okay? But for us, for me, the person in front of you does know what they're doing, okay? They may not be as good as you are, at least that's the working theory, but they do know what they're doing. Because they know what they're doing, there's likely to have been an exchange already. The reason for that is because we're told to stand in a certain position to set this up, okay? So there would have had to have been some pre-assessment. That pre-assessment would have centered around the fact that they're cutting big cuts off the right shoulder. They're trying to cause me damage. They may be a little bit uncontrolled, and that's where this play starts to come into its own. So let's explore the play. So, as I say, there may have been a bit of an exchange already because I would have needed to have pre-assessed this. We are told to wait with the front foot a little bit offline. The reason why we're told to wait with the front foot offline is because I'm going to be coming extremely offline, okay? They're going to be cutting in a big, powerful action. I can get away with it if I'm linear, I can get away with it, but when you start increasing the power and you have to add in a bit of adjustment time for reaction and so on and so forth, this starts to really come into its own. We'll come away from the edge there, dude. I'm waiting in Porta di Ferro, front foot's offline, and basically what's going to happen is he's going to cut in. I'm going to do this covering action, okay? And then I'm going to turn the weapon with a step. Now this looks a bit odd, and I'll explain this in a second, okay? In terms of that cover, if you just come and stop in the cover, okay? This is the action that I need. Now, there's a temptation to try and force it to ground. Not necessary, okay? Sometimes, not all the time, even with sharps, and we've done this quite a bit with those, sometimes he will go off and embed himself in the ground anyway, okay? If that happens, it's a nice to have, but he's being awfully uncontrolled if that really happens. All I need is an opening. I'm just keeping myself safe, okay? So here comes the strike. I'm just keeping myself safe, and I'm keeping my arms high where I can use them. There's no point in this, it's a wasted action. I'm safe here. We know that the action is to cut over like this, okay? Now for that to be meaningful and for me to have a good base to carry on the rest of the fight, it's useful to step with that as well. I don't have to, okay? I can just turn the weapon. So I can be here, I can come off, and I can just turn it over, yeah? But I want to carry on. We also know that that's the cut that's coming in because of the next play. The next play is basically showing me about to thrust to his middle, and what he's done is he's made an almost complete turn around. The reason for that is because he knows what's coming now. That's why he's not uncontrolled. An uncontrolled person wouldn't even think to move out the way. They wouldn't be thinking that far ahead. So this goes back to the peasant idea. But this is basically the action, okay? I'm going to be thrusting here. Now I'm not stepping, but with the thrust I would try and step, just to maintain that agreement in case I miss. I need to have a good functional base to carry on from. But that's how we know that it's a fendente back over, okay? Because I need to follow on to the next play. And the quickest way to do that is set myself up, wait for the big attack, there we go, stepping over, and that gives me the next play. Okay, I just want to quickly touch on a really important point about the system being a framework, and we're not Marshall clones, so it's important to take the principles of the system, stay within system, but of course make things your own. So I've been doing this play since I was about 10 years old, and my original teacher was my father, who was obviously much taller. He was 6'8" and I was 10, so it was a huge height difference. But what I started to do, and it's something I always do against a taller opponent, is I started to cheat a little bit, if you like, with the initial setup of this play. So I would still wait with my front foot offline. I would wait in porte de ferro, because I need to be on that side of my body anyway for the cover. And when the cut comes in, I would gather, and I would basically make the cover here with the left foot forward. That's useful against a taller opponent because they're coming down on top of you. John is 6'5", I'm 6 foot, so he's quite a bit taller than I am. Because he's coming down on top of me, because of the distance that we're going to be at when he sends the cut, he's the one cutting at me, it's really quick and advantageous to just do the action off of this. Just do the action off of this, okay? If we're the same height or similar height, or he's got a different weapon, let's say he's got a poleaxe, etc., I need to get the right foot forward, and that's what we see in the manuscript, okay? So I add that in after, but in the manuscript, we wait a little bit offline, and as the big strike comes in, we do this. We do this, okay? There's a number of reasons for this. A lot of it is to do with what happens after this point, especially if he's got a bigger weapon like a poleaxe. But in either case, it's fine. I'm coming over. Now, I'm stepping with the left foot this time, okay? And that then gives me the follow-on play. So it's important to look at a technique. Again, just make it your own. Just stick within principle if you're a purist and you're trying to be true to the source. But there is a lot of room within action for this, like this. There's a lot of room for a bit of personal preference. One of our senior instructors actually does it as a very narrow action, and he makes it work really, really well. All the same stuff is happening. He's still, I'm going to try and do it. I'll find a video, I think, of him doing it because it's really nice. But he's still waiting with the front foot, but he does it all here. He does it all as a very narrow action. Another one of our instructors doesn't push it to ground, but he does guide the weapon to ground. And what that basically means is he can action the villain strike off of just a typical cut, okay? So where we're saying it needs to be big, it needs to be powerful, and he can actually make this work very, very well from just a standard fendente, just a normal high-powered fendente. I try and do it, he waits, and he basically just guides it like this. He brings the foot, he just guides it away like that, and then he basically wheels it over. Again, it's just important. I don't want people to think that there's only one way to do something. There isn't, of course there isn't. And so I just think that's a really important point just to throw in. I'll wait for the big attack, there we go, stepping over, and that gives me the next play. There's the thrust, okay? Now, of course, I'm switched on too, okay? So I also need to be conscious of his weapon. Of course, my priority is to thrust to put him out of the fight, but I do also need to think about what he's wearing, what he's got on, what kind of weapon he's got, because as I say, you can do this with poleaxe, you can do this with lots of different things, but I also need to be thinking about, oh, he's going to switch it up, okay. I also need to be thinking about what happens if I miss, or if he's got on any kind of protection or whatever. So I'm off and I'm over. I don't necessarily have to be thinking about this thrust, okay? I could just be thinking about covering against the weapon, because he's indented a Chingali now, he can thrust from there, and we might kill each other at the same time. So to play this through, we'll do it at a bit of an angle. Okay, so if you come here, John, I think that would be good for the viewers. Okay, so cut comes in, cover, there's the fendente over, keep turning, there's the thrust, yeah? This is the risk. So, play it through again, yeah, cut, and I'm just going to drop straight down on top of it, yeah? Just going to drop straight down on top of it, because I want to keep myself perfectly safe. So that's the action, okay? Now, as a good little sort of memory jogger, when I was learning this stuff many moons ago, I always broke it down into stages. So it's offline and cover, fendente, step and thrust, and that's how I remembered it. But that fendente can be very meaningful, okay? So we're off, we're that could be a very good, very meaningful fendente. Yeah, onto the thrust. There we go, with thrust. So that's the Villain strike and a little bit of padding around the outside. I've done more technical videos in the Villain strike when I was solo during the lockdown. They're earlier on the channel. I'll try and find a video and link it underneath. Hope that was useful. Thanks to John, and until the next one.